Carpio. Thank you so much for joining us, Justice.
Thank you, Richard, for having me, and uh, well, greetings to our viewers.
Thank you so much. I mean, of course, Justice, you and I have been having a lot of conversation over the past few years or so, a lot of ebb and flows, a lot of changes in the Philippines' foreign policy direction, of course, over the past decade. Justice Carpio, how do you feel about the current alignment of things? I mean, the current predisposition of the administration, Marcos administration, especially on the West Philippine Sea issue and towards US and China, because not long ago, people were warning that, oh my goodness, Marcos Jr. is going to be like his father, or on foreign policy, is going to be like Tatay Digong. We heard words like Manchurian candidates. He's going to finish off what Duterte could not, put to rest. I mean, and yet now things are looking familiar in the sense that it's looking like Aquino administration era, where we have an administration which is relatively tough on China, to put it mildly. Justice Curry, what are your honest opinions about how things have turned out? Without being, of course, illusionado about the other concerns we have with this administration and the human rights, democracy front, etc.
Well, as far as the West Philippines is concerned, sabi ko nga, what President Marcos Jr. is saying is music to my ears. No, I'm pleasantly surprised, just like you, that he has made a complete turnaround,
Yeah.
and he's actually saying what we want him to say. What we wanted the Duterte administration to say, President Marcos Jr. now is saying. So, of course, we have to watch whether he will walk the talk. No?
Right.
And but so far, he has said the right things, and I'm I have no, I cannot criticize him for his position. I am just waiting. The acid test will be whether we can send our survey and drill ships to Reed Bank, accompanied by our Navy, in joint patrol with the U.S. Because whatever China says, even if China doesn't recognize our EEZ, even if China doesn't recognize the arbitral award, as long as we get the gas in Reed Bank, then we are winning. It's
Right.
just like Malaysia. Uh, China said you cannot get the gas in your EEZ because that's within the 9-dash line.
Right.
There will be war. But Malaysia was able to get the gas. The US and Australian warships were there conducting naval drills at the same time. So it doesn't really matter for Malaysia that China doesn't recognize its EEZ as long as Malaysia gets the gas. That's the bottom line. The same thing with Indonesia. China said you cannot get the gas. That's within the 9-dash line. But Indonesia still sent its survey and drill ship to the Natunas, and the U.S. aircraft carrier Ronald Reagan just happened to pass by, and the Chinese Coast Guard could not do anything. So Indonesia is winning because it's getting the gas. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Here we are. We could not get the gas even now, but we are. I understand that there will be a joint patrol before the end of the year in Reed Bank, in that area, and we will be sending our. I hope we will send our survey and drill ships there, so that we'll be able to get the gas. It will not matter if China doesn't recognize the arbitral award, as long as we get the gas. That's it.
Thank you very much, Justice. There's a lot to discuss here in terms of acid tests, no? But before going there, what is your hunch when it comes to this redirection compared to what was expected of Marcos Jr.? I mean, just after the elections, I already had a couple of pieces about looking at the legacy of his own father, the Marcos Sr. administration, which I think, in fairness, no, I mean, we can say a lot about its horrible human rights record and management of the economy, but I think the Marcos Sr. administration has a pretty decent record of being proactive in the West Philippine Sea, building our facilities in Pagasa. And I always felt that the shadow of the father could be a positive influence, at least on the West Philippine Sea and South China Sea front. So I've been very transparent on that on the record through elections and just right after the elections. My also hunch is perhaps the Biden administration's reaching out to him, providing him, sovereign immunity right away, or at least telling him about that. Maybe that also, reassured him, not to mention China not really offering him anything during his visit to China. What is your hunch? What do you think was decisive in
Well,
making Marcos Jr. what he was, or did everyone just misread him throughout the elections?
yeah, before President Marcos Jr. went to Beijing in January, I was asking the people in his administration,
Right.
what will he tell President Xi?
Yeah.
And I was told that he will tell President Xi that I have to get the gas in Reed Bank because we are running out of gas in Malampaya. And if we don't get a substitute,
Yeah.
then we'll have 12 to 14 hours of brownouts every day in Luzon. And that will be devastating the economy. And that will make me very unpopular. I mean, that will really make him very
Interesting.
unpopular because inflation will go up to the roof. No?
Yeah.
So they told me that the President Marcos Jr. will tell President Xi that I have to get the gas in Reed Bank. And I said, what if President Xi turns it down?
Yeah.
Well, we will go to the Americans. That's what
Yeah.
I was told.
Mm.
So when after the trip in Beijing, when he arrived in Manila, he announced immediately, we will have joint patrols with the U.S. because that's really the formula to get the gas.
Of course.
The Malaysians have shown it. The Indonesians have shown it. That's the formula. You go there, survey and drill, and have the American warships in the area. That was the successful formula. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I think that was the clincher.
Yeah.
Because if we cannot get the gas in Reed Bank, we have to import LNG that will make our power rates increase by at least 50%. Because LNG now is very expensive because Europe is buying LNG from the rest of the world because it cannot buy natural gas from Russia. So we have to compete with the EU, and LNG is more expensive than natural gas because you have to convert the natural gas to liquid just to transport it. And once it arrives in Bataan, you have to store it underground. And when you need it, you have to regasify it to feed it to the gas-fired plants. So it's really expensive in itself, no? Plus the fact that the price of LNG has gone up. So it will really be devastating to our economy if we have to import LNG for gas-fired plants in Luzon. And so I think he had really no choice but to tell the Chinese that I have to get the gas. If not, I will have to get it the way Malaysia and Indonesia was able to do it.
So
That's the way I look at it.
Right.
Although, of course,
Yeah.
we all know that we have to give credit to President Marcos Sr. for what he did in the Spratlys because he issued that PD 1596 to incorporate the Kalayaan Island Group as a municipality, and he was the one who sent, before that, our military there to occupy the islands, no? And that was in the early 1970s.
Right.
We have to give credit to him.
Right.
And probably Marcos Jr. Realizes that he has to continue the legacy of his father. It could be that also. But I think the crucial thing is the problem that's facing us as a nation now is we are running out of gas in Malampaya. That's it.
So it's the urgency of the energy security and by extension our economic security that you think was really decisive. Now, of course, I mean, in fairness to Marcos Sr., also with, Estelito Mendoza, etc., we had that, I think, Manila Declaration thing. We brought other post-colonial nations. This is the United Nations Convention Law of the Sea negotiation. So I think on multiple fronts, the Marcos Sr. administration had a positive contribution to ensuring countries like the Philippines can have, pretty good standing when it comes to defending our rights, sir. But going back to this energy security issue, were you surprised that China really offered him nothing? I mean, I went through the whole what was it, like 16 point whatever joint declaration dun sa Beijing. even dun sa big ticket infrastructure projects, there was really nothing except that that bridge in Davao, which was already agreed before. It looks like the 22.8 billion that was offered to him was just repackaged 24 billion, which was mostly unfulfilled. I think I said pledge trap all the time. I said debt trap. Forget about it. Walang papa. I mean, are you surprised by how China has been completely wasting its opportunity to win over people like Duterte and Marcos, who are not your typical pro-American reformist liberal leaders? I mean, um, does that show arrogance? Does that show naivete? What's going on there? Do they think they can get the Philippines on the cheap?
Well, even during the time of President Duterte, he could not get the presidency to deliver on the
Yeah,
promises on those $24 billion loans and investment. Out of that amount, only less than 5%
yeah,
materialized. No, but China is having economic difficulties right now,
yeah,
and their economy, their real estate has collapsed. Their exports have gone down, and they have uh, the real estate really is very bad. They have 20% unemployment for their youth.
yeah.
So I think they have to prioritize their own problems domestically. So I think they're not in a position now to. If they were not in a position during time of Duterte,
Even right
uh,
now, yeah,
with more reason, they are not in a position now
yeah,
to to deliver on their promises. No, whatever may be the reason, they really I don't think they really intended to deliver on their promises because they know that uh, a new president could come in and change the entire equation, could go back to the Americans. I
yeah,
mean, repivot to the U.S. and the EU. So it will be a waste of investment on their part because uh, they can capture the leadership in the country, but they cannot capture the elite and the massa
yeah,
because there's a inherent conflict.
yeah,
They're grabbing our territory and maritime zones, so they can never get the support of a majority of our people. An overwhelming majority of the people will always be against China because China is the only country in the world that has territorial and maritime designs on the Philippines. So I think they realize that they will be throwing just money and wasting that what they will be giving us. So we are the last in their list of their priority list if they want to give financial aid or lend money to developing countries.
Justice Carpio, um, going back to this, when it comes to uh, China, what about them relying on vectors of misinformation? Yung mga, I don't know, mga forum dyan, yung mga influencer dyan, yung mga overnight on clause international law expert, di ba? Yung mga resident analyst dun sa isang, I don't know, news channel. I don't know, banned na ulit ba yan on YouTube? I think people know what we were talking about here. Do you think that they overestimated the power of these vectors of influence or misinformation to turn the tide when it comes to public opinion, or were they looking at, I don't know, pogos, but all sorts of different ways to corrupt or capture our elite and all? Do you think that they had a hope about that, and what do you feel about the fact that the current administration, some of whom were working in the previous administration, suddenly now coming out guns blazing and saying, no, we have to fight against Chinese misinformation? So I said, wait lang, dati boss niya si Digong nga mismo was behind misinformation and all this pro-China stuff. Then suddenly now you're for... how do you feel about that? Because, like, I want to be nice, but sometimes when I scratch my head, Justice Carpio.
Well, on the small but vocal group of Filipinos who are supporting the line of China, and they're saying that the Cairo conference, the Potsdam Declaration, awarded the Spratlys to China. Of course, he did not award. In the San Francisco Peace Conference of 1951, Russia, USSR then, made a motion to award the Spratlys and the Parasols to China, and it was voted down overwhelmingly. So it was totally rejected,
Yeah.
and they don't mention that. and what governs what the disposition of territories after World War II is really the San Francisco Peace Conference. So they're grasping at straws, and they're just echoing the Chinese propaganda.
Yeah.
We have debunked all of this Chinese propaganda a long time ago,
Yeah.
and it looks like they're not even doing their own research, because they just parrot the Chinese line. And this Chinese propaganda has been debunked by so many scholars already.
Yeah.
Well, it's I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised that the Marcos Jr. administration is now fighting disinformation, making it
Galit eh. Galit
an
sa
important
misinformation.
uh, platform of his government. Uh, uh, but I don't know how he will do it. Uh, but of course, to be fighting disinformation has always been our advocacy also, and I hope he will do something positive about it.
Justice, what about the passing of Foreign Influence Act, like what the Australians and Taiwanese have, right? To really pin down itong vectors of misinformation. Because, I mean, of course, we have nothing against yung mga kababayan natin who genuinely have concerns, with the Philippines, I don't know, going to war with China or being over reliant on United States. Of course, that opinion may be very much based on the misinformation. But I want rule out many Filipinos on ideological, emotional, or lack of information grounds having certain opinions that differs from you and I and from the administration. Pero parang ibang usapan yung iba dyan na consistently yung talking points nila, parang alam natin saan galing yan. Consistently, they have been besmirching the Filipinos. They have been besmirching AFP. They have besmirching you and I, especially you, Justice Carpio, over the past few years. Pag-usapan natin even more later on. So, do you think it's time for a Foreign Influence Act and some sort of, efforts to really fight sharp power operations by hostile authoritarian powers?
Well, there is a balancing act that we have to do here, because I am for freedom of expression. Uh, I have, but there are many things that we can do. Like, for example, Ateneo and UP, they opened Confucius Institutes here. And it's a one-way street, because the Chinese could distribute materials in our campuses, but we could not do it in China.
Yeah.
So if we if we enter into agreements with Chinese universities on the Confucius Institute, we should make it reciprocal. We should open also Rizal Institutes in their campuses.
Yeah.
We have Rizal Institutes. There's a law on that, and we have one in London that was opened because they can distribute materials here on their own narrative about the South China Sea, but we cannot distribute that in China. So if we require the reciprocity, they will back out, because there is no freedom of expression there.
Yeah.
They will be able to distribute my book there.
Yeah.
Your whatever you wrote can be distributed there, and they
Yeah.
will never allow that. So they will stop. They will not open a Confucius Institute if it will be reciprocal.
Yeah.
So that's the way to fight it. And we just have to expose these people. They just parrot the narrative of China. So we explain it. And if they say that the Cairo conference and the Potsdam Declaration awarded the Sprat list to China, we just show the records.
Yeah.
So it is an opportunity for us to explain to our people, and I don't think they will win the argument, because what they are peddling are false historical claims. These are really false claims, and we have the historical records to back us up. Now, there is a move in Congress to enact Foreign Agents Act, Foreign Lobbying Act. That's okay, but this is limited to those who lobby in Congress, no?
Yeah. just for transparency, I mean, you just register. I'm working in behalf of government of XYZ, which is normal, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong. Just be transparent about it, no. So we're not here to pin you down as spy or anything like that. Just be transparent, no. So that you're more comfortable with that, Justice Carpio.
Yes,
Yeah.
just register.
Yeah.
If you are a lobbyist, just register. But we still accord them freedom of expression.
Right.
But at least we know where they're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah.
They cannot appear as nationalists because they have registered that they are lobbying for a foreign country.
Yeah. Yun nga, I mean, we just want to understand where these people coming from, no? Bakit consistently they're arguing the position of another country, not the Philippines, right? I mean, as scholars, I mean, you and I have written books on South Chinese, etc. We'll argue this is the Malaysian position, this is the Philippine position, this is China position, and they will weigh. Walang ganun eh. This is sa kanila like, this is Philippine position, Malaysia, China, and then puro China position, China position, China position. And then if you criticize them or question them, they'll say, bayaran ka ng Amerika, and then they'll tag you as being agent for United States. So, medyo magulo yan, di ba? So, let's just be open about it, di ba? If you guys are really lobbying in behalf of Chinese embassy or whatever, then just register, and, and we'll take your arguments accordingly, right? Baka takot sila once they're transparent about what's their affiliation. Walang lalong maniniwala sa kanila. But my understanding, just Carp, is that you're a little bit iffy about some of this conversation around, pushing back against foreign influence operations because perhaps you're concerned that this could be a rabbit hole, that this could be a slippery slope towards some sort of another form of red tagging, in a sense. Because Justice Carby, to be fair, I mean, there are good friends of mine, mentors of mine who are, on the other side, not because they're pro-China, but because they're still arguing that anti-American position that they've been arguing for the past 50 years and mukhang hindi naka-move on. But I cannot take that against them. That's their ideological personal position. I don't think that makes them agents of China. So I just want to also make it distinguish this kind of progressive thinkers from those who are clearly agents of China. And unfortunately, having ito mga forum, bakery, mga ganyan, and then akot ng mga tao, alam niyo na.
Yeah. Well, as long as they identify themselves if they are receiving money from a foreign country, that should be the rule. But if they're not receiving money from a foreign country, then they will be expressing their opinion. It's part of their freedom of
Yes,
expression.
exactly.
If they're receiving financial aid from China, they should disclose it.
So
That should be
the
the
money
case.
trail is important here, no? So, but how they establish kung may money? I mean, they could just say, no, walang money trail. But there should be some intelligence gathering, right? Inevitably, para we
Yes,
establish
it's
that.
difficult to prove, but
Yeah.
they were able to establish that in the U.S. and in Canada, that these people, that the pro-Chinese, they receive aid, and I think we can do that also here now.
Yeah.
And as long as there is a law that says that if you are receiving financial aid from a foreign country, you should disclose it.
Yeah.
To work for the interest of a foreign country, and that's it. It's up to our intelligence agency to get the evidence for
Right.
that. But as long as there is that fear that there is such a law, they're aware of that, and that I think will be a deterrent. That's the most that we can do, because we don't want also to stifle freedom of
I
expression.
understand.
But Richard, I'm very comfortable with our position because I think we have the law and the facts on our side. It's a matter of explaining to the people. And the survey shows, since the 80s, that 80 to 90% of our people support our position to defend the West Philippine Sea. So, and if you reach 90%, that's unanimous, practically unanimous. In
Yeah.
fact, mga was telling me, if you reach 85%, that's unanimous already.
Yeah.
So I think we have the support of the people. We just have to answer them. They've been attacking me, but I just replied, state the facts, because we have the facts and the law on our side. And we are defending our own territory, our own maritime zones under international law. And if they don't want to defend Philippine territory and maritime zones, then the people will be the one to tell them that you are betraying the country.
So, Justice Carr, it looks like you still subscribe to the marketplace of idea, the kind of John Stuart Mill, and the idea that if they're gonna get false, we are gonna go the right way, and we can fight it back based on the force of our argument and the
Yes,
validity of
I
our
still
convictions.
subscribe to that because the alternative would be bad. If we have another Duterte, we might be at the
Yes.
receiving end of the law.
Yeah. It could be a double-edged sword. I also
Yeah, it's a
understand. I
double.
just felt it's perfect to ask you, Justice Carpy, because just a few years ago, you were at the forefront of raising concerns naman dun sa new anti-terror, law na pinasa ng
Yes.
gobyerno, because there is some slippery element there. And I remember very well, and this is where essentially I'm arguing against myself, which I don't, because remember they kept on saying kinopia nila yung Australia, no, on how to create a balance between counterterrorism and freedom of expression. And then now I'm hearing that, well, Australia could be also a model for foreign influence or foreign. And then so as I say, okay, like, you're right. You're absolutely right. Justice Carpio, that maybe now you're excited because there's this pro-China people involved. But in 6 years, things could look different. This could be used against anyone who's perhaps critical of over dependence on the U.S. or and being tagged as pro-China. And who knows, right? What's gonna happen if Trump comes back to the White House? You and I may end up criticizing the U.S. and then we'll be tagged as pro-China, right? I mean, this could become crazy, right, in a few years from now. So I really appreciate you adding your voice to this debate. I want to hear more from you. I hope more of your ideas on this issue is also percolated, because I think now suddenly there's a lot of lobbying for Foreign Relations Act, something more aggressive on this front. But tingin ko naman, Justice Carpy, that's also because marami na frustrate kasi for 6 years, the president, many people got away with spreading a lot of nonsense, right? So, as in sobrang nonsense. And speaking of nonsense, um, well, way more in your case than mine, but the angle of Vietnam, right? So a while ago you mentioned China is the only country that is really creeping into our waters, right? But of course, technically speaking, Vietnam also has some overlapping claims with us in the Calayan Group of Islands or Spratlys. And yes, back in the what, 70s ba yan? Na kinuha yung isang isla nung naglaro, nagising, ganun. Okay, we know that story, right? But this is so long ago, right? And last time I checked, hindi tayo binubuli ng Vietnam sa Pag-asa, sa Ayungin, sa Panatag. So, Justice Carpio, can you right off the bat go again? What is this nonsense attack about you and because of your personal connections to Vietnam, not necessarily the Vietnamese government? Can you just, speaking of pushing back again, facts first. Christian
Okay,
Esguerra.
facts.
Yes, go.
Yeah. Uh, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia have no claim on our exclusive economic zone. They agree with the arbitral award because the arbitral award does not touch on the territorial dispute. The territorial dispute concerns the high tide feature and 12 nautical miles. Beyond 12 nautical miles, that's the exclusive economic zone. And that's the ruling of the tribunal. The tribunal said beyond the 12 nautical miles of all these islands in the Spratlys is the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines. And all of them agree. They don't question that. So our dispute with them is on the territorial dispute. Only China questions our exclusive economic zone. China is claiming 80% of our exclusive economic zone in the West
That's
Philippine
a
Sea.
good
So
point, yeah.
as far as the maritime dispute is concerned, we have only one adversary,
Yeah.
China. On the territorial dispute, there are 5 disputant states. But
Yeah.
that territorial dispute will go on and on because there is no tribunal, international
Yeah.
tribunal that has compulsory jurisdiction over it. As far as the ASEAN countries are concerned, we have an, an unwritten agreement that we will stand still, a standstill agreement. We do not occupy what the other has
Yeah.
occupied already. And on top of that, you have the declaration of conduct that you do not occupy unoccupied features.
Yeah.
So with that, we are comfortable with that. We even play basketball, volleyball with the Vietnamese. But our dispute with them is limited to the territorial dispute.
which is just five less than 5% of the entire West Philippine Sea.
Yeah.
So we don't have a dispute with China, with Vietnam,
Vietnam.
Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, as far as our exclusive economic
Economic zone
zone is
is
concerned.
concerned.
And
Yeah.
this is where the marine wealth is located. The gas, the oil, the
Right.
fish, they're all in the exclusive economic zone. So that's why we can
Mm.
live with the territorial dispute. We can put it in a back burner until sea level rise will submerge all of these islands, and they become also our exclusive economic zone if within 200 nautical miles from our baseline. So let's just relax as far as the territorial dispute is
Mm.
concerned, because there's really no tribunal that can acquire compulsory jurisdiction. And nature is on our side. Sea level rise will be about 1 to 2 meters by the end of the century, and
Yeah.
that will submerge all of these islands. So, what I'm saying is, our dispute with the ASEAN countries, our territorial dispute, is something that we can manage.
Yeah.
We will occupy, but they harass our vessels, fishing vessels, or a coast guard. They has, or even our navy in the
Yeah.
BRP Sierra Madre. So that is really a problem. And the biggest problem, one thing is very devastate our economy if we cannot get the gas in Reed Bank.
Yeah, I think we'll have to return to the bank again and again over the coming months and years as we wait for the government's move. But just Scorpio, what do you think also about this growing cooperation between Philippines and Vietnam under Marcos Jr.? I mean, obviously there's the angle of food security there because what 90% of our rice imports come from Vietnam, but we heard also words used like maritime cooperation agreement. Is this closer to what you and I have been advocating for quite some time, which is maybe a kind of a COC among us, maybe a kind of maritime delimitation, boundary delimitation based on sa arbitration award natin? Are you optimistic that's the direction we can move towards, or do you think that indeed the Marcos administration should aggressively pursue sensible bilateral maritime deals with Vietnam, and from there also work it with Malaysia and all? I think, ironically, I think I'm more comfortable dealing with Vietnam on this than Malaysia kasi ang gulo ng Malaysia eh. Mas magulo pa sa atin eh. But we can talk about that more. Where do you
Yeah,
stand on that?
when, on the cooperation on maritime issues, that refers to the waters being territorial sea, no? Because
Yeah.
that's the maritime dispute. We don't with Vietnam,
Yeah.
waters beyond the territorial sea, and we can cooperate with them. How? Well, I'm thinking.
ASEAN countries, Vietnam, Malaysia, the Philippines, even Indonesia, should be prepared to conduct joint patrols in their own exclusive economic zones. They can jointly patrol with us, or we in our EEZ in the West Philippine Sea. We will in the EEZ in Vietnam, in Indonesia and Malaysia, because Richard, we cannot discount the possibility. It's a remote possibility that isolationist and just leave the South China Sea.
Yeah, another
If
Trump. Yeah.
if the U.S. will decide that or can come to agreement with the Chinese to divide the world, they will withdraw from the South China Sea. If today they withdraw from the South China Sea, then the 9-dash line, the 10-dash line becomes the national boundary of China. No naval force will stop them or can stop them. It's only the U.S. Navy and with the assistance of the British and the French
Yeah.
and the Japanese that's stopping China from establishing the 10-dash line as its national boundary in the South China Sea.
Yeah.
And they've included that already in their latest map. Before, they did not explain the meaning of, they were ambiguous as to the meaning of the dashes. Now they say it's their international boundary. It's there in the legend of the map. So they're telling us that's the national boundary of China.
Yeah.
What if the US will withdraw? What will happen to us? So we have to prepare for that day that we will be defending our own EEZ against China without the assistance of European or North American powers or even Japan
Yeah.
or South Korea. So we it's a remote possibility, but who knows if there might be a different president of the U.S. who thinks that it's good to divide the world with China.
And there's of
That's it.
course the possibility of a war in Taiwan, which will also directly have implications for the South China Sea, because there's no way China can dominate Taiwan without having some sort of dominance in the the rear area, which is the South China Sea. So I think that also compresses the time horizons in a sense, and also gives a greater sense of urgency that hindi lang tayo pwede umasa sa America. We have to also work it out with other countries in the region, right? Including U.S. allies
Yes,
like Japan, Australia, etc., who also have their own interests. I'm sure your concerns about U.S. withdrawal, it's also a concern in Japan, also a concern in Australia, right? Because bati sila, lagot din sila if ever U.S. withdraws.
yes,
But they have to prepare, right, accordingly. Yeah.
yeah. We have to prepare, and right now everybody's saying that the next move of China will be to invade Taiwan. But we are really the low-lying fruit. If China encounters difficulty in invading Taiwan, and President Xi is under pressure to create a diversion from their domestic problems, he might just choose the Philippines, the low-lying fruit, and maybe build more naval bases in the Spratlys or even in Scarborough Shoal.
Yeah.
So we are really the low-lying fruit here, and the alternative to an invasion of Taiwan. So we have to prepare for that also. Thank you.
No, just before we go to the last part of this conversation, whereby perhaps we can look at the range of options we have to maximize our position and not to be so low hanging fruit, hopefully. Let's talk about this discussion re DOJ and also the Office of Solicitor General about filing potential new arbitration case against China on the grounds of the damages that they have inflicted on our coral reefs, no? Base sa mga latest reports and evidences that have been gathering. I mean, how do you feel about this? What are the prospects? I think we tried to do something with that a few years ago when the late Foreign Secretary Albert Rosario and also the other Justice Carpio Morales, of course, pushed for that ICC cases against Xi Jinping and all. It did not prosper because ICC said it doesn't have jurisdiction. So, technically speaking, what kind of arbitration are we looking at here, Justice Carpio? Because you have been one of the leading voices for what I call, let's say, follow-through arbitration cases. Like hindi dapat end-all be-all lang in 2016. Dapat simula pa lang yun a new chapter of lawfare, no? Going after Chinese companies, etc. But at the same time, isn't this a bit ironic? Because it's the same DOJ and Solicitor General Office which has been, I don't know, bashing ICC or saying wala kayong pake dito. Like, doesn't that undermine our moral ascendancy or or even momentum in terms of getting the help of international arbitration bodies? I mean, you can have the cake and eat it too, right? Or maybe
Yes,
you can.
there are two fora here, Richard. What was filed against President Xi Jinping was a crime against humanity, but that is
Yeah.
before the ICC, the International Criminal Court.
Yes.
Uh, the if we file an environmental case against
Is
China
that
for the
ICJ
destruction of the
or?
coral reef, it will be with the UNCLOS Tribunal.
Okay.
Remember, in the arbitral award of the UNCLOS Tribunal,
Right.
the tribunal ruled that China caused severe damage, permanent damage to the coral reef system in the Spratlys. But we did not ask for damages because we felt that what was more important at the time was to strike down the 9-dash line as a basis of the claim of China for to encroach on our exclusive economic zone. We did not ask for damages, but this time, if we ask for damages, we can file the case before an UNCLOS tribunal.
The same
Because
Article 287 Annex 7 compulsory arbitration. I mean, the same.
yes,
Yeah, we can do
the
the same.
same.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the same. We will now file because that
Yeah.
was one of our statements of claim when we filed the arbitration in 2013 that China caused severe damage to the coral reef system. We will do the same, but this time we will add damages.
Yes.
There will be the tribunal will accept jurisdiction because that's
It's
very
established, right?
clear
Yeah.
within the jurisdiction of an UNCLOS tribunal.
Yeah.
It is not. It does not have to be the territory of the Philippines because the tribunal has jurisdiction over exclusive economic zones.
Yeah. Thank you, Justice Carpio, for clarifying that in terms of this follow through. My sense is, had it not been someone like Duterte, perhaps that would have been an option back in 2016 and 17, not in 2023, 2024, no? So we lost many, many years to effectuate, no? Yung ating karapatan, sovereign rights dyan sa West Philippines. We lost many years to strengthen our position sa reed bank, no? And development of resources there. We lost many years in terms of making sure na yung ating mga mangingisda, no, and ating mga resources dyan ay hindi binababoy, no. This is where, of course, Justice Carpio, I'm pushing back against the argument na magpasalamat tayo kay Digong dahil, I don't know, minura-mura niya yung Amerika. Ngayon, mas sinusuportahan tayo ng Amerika. I mean, dahil sa kanya, sa kanyang katapangan. Di ba? Of course, I'm sure you're familiar with that line of argument, no? I mean, maybe I kind of agree with it to a certain degree. I even had Greg Pauling and some of our American friends kind of saying, yeah, US is more taking us seriously. But my sense is just the physics of geopolitics, just concerns about China would have always made the Philippines more important. Hindi natin kailangan babastusin yung mga aliado natin or gawin yung mga ginawa ni Digong because we lost so much ground vis-a-vis China in the South China Sea. Now, Justice Carpio, you were also mentioning a few years ago, was that in your Wall Street Journal op-ed about even the option of taking the cases to courts in different countries where Chinese state-owned companies have assets and perhaps those assets could be a basis for damage reparations, etc. Is that something you're still pushing for? Let's say Sinopec, CNPC, some of the Chinese companies who are involved in illegal activities, drilling, whatever, they could be liable for damages via their subsidiaries in Western countries.
That's correct, Richard. Let us assume that we cannot survey and drill in Reed Bank because of Chinese opposition.
Yeah.
And Sinuk instead gets the gas.
Yeah.
Now, the tribunal has ruled that the gas belongs to the Philippines. So, China, through its Sinuk, its state subsidiary, state corporation, got the gas and sells the gas. So, that is stolen property. The gas belongs to us.
Correct.
China stole it. So, we can sue China, let's say in Canada, where Sinuk has operations, some assets, and we can attach those assets. We can go to a country that is a member of the UNCLOS, because they are a member of UNCLOS, they will recognize the arbitral award and sue for damages for the theft that was made by China for stealing the gas, because the gas belongs to us. That's the decision of the arbitral tribunal. That's still in the play if China will get the gas.
Yeah.
Now, if China does not get the gas, we will sue China for damages if China prevents us from getting the gas.
Yes. And so, Justice Carpio, can we use that as a credible threat to nudge the Chinese to let us have our way in the reed bank based on our own rights? Maybe, I don't know, we can have a service contract with the Chinese somewhere there in the West Philippines para lang good feels, pero the idea of them claiming yung resources sa reed bank, that's just non-negotiable, right? I mean, ano yung diskarte na pwede natin gamitin with all of these options that now we have under Marcos administration that we didn't have to really get the ball rolling sa reed bank? Kasi wala the bomb, parang ticking bomb talaga yan, di ba?
Well, we tried that. We really went to the maximum, to the edge of the cliff, in the words of Teddy Boy, when we signed the MOU with China.
Yeah.
Because under the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, we agreed to cooperate with China to get the gas in Reed Bank, but under the service contract system of the Philippines.
Yes.
And China agreed. We signed that.
Yes.
We said under the service contract of the Philippines, because every service contract of the Philippines says whereas the first whereas clause says whereas the oil and gas belongs to the Philippines.
Yes,
so I said that's okay.
Yeah.
Because that's very clear. And there's another provision that the contract shall be governed by Philippine law. I said that's it. Those are the two provisions that have to be there for us to sign an MOU. And they were there. So we were happy. And the terms of reference was the terms of reference was signed, okay, just to implement the MOU. But the last agreement was supposed to be a commercial agreement between Sinuk and Forum Energy, whereby Sinuk will become a subcontractor of Forum Energy because Forum Energy has the concession for service contract 72, that's Reed Bank.
Yes, yes, yes.
So Sinuk will either be a purely service contractor or will be an equity holder and subcontractor of Forum Energy. But at the last minute, China said, wait a minute, let's remove that phrase, whereas the oil and gas belongs to the Philippines.
Philippines, yeah.
Remove that clause that Philippine law will govern. They wanted to remove those two provisions. And Teddy Boy said, if we remove that, we'll fall off the constitutional cliff.
Yeah.
So he said, I cannot do that. And he recommended to President Duterte to terminate those signed the agreements already, and Duterte agreed. So that's the history there. We tried our best. I was happy that China was willing to sign the MOU because the
For
way
a
I
service
thought,
contract, not a joint development agreement, etc. Yeah.
no, it's not a joint development.
Yeah.
It's a service contract means
yeah.
China is just our agent as contractor.
Like
We are the
Shell
owner.
in Malampaya, something like that. Yeah.
Yes, just like Shell.
Yeah.
Just like Shell.
Yeah.
They just provide service and they paid in kind
Right.
with the gas. But they are just a contractor.
Correct.
The owner is the Philippines. That was perfect. But I don't know why. I thought that President Xi would already find that as a template for a South China Sea-wide solution to the dispute. Because I talked to the Vietnamese, to the Malaysians, they said, that's perfect with us. If you sign, we can sign also. And I thought we were in the cusp of finding a solution to the South China Sea dispute. But at the last minute, China took back its word. And we had to scuttle it. And what Secretary Teddy Boy did was correct, to just scuttle it. Now, when after President Marcos Jr. came back and he said, let's have joint patrol with the Americans, China again said, let's negotiate for a joint cooperation again.
Dribble
But
tayo
I said,
talaga eh.
well, it will go back to that. It will boil down to that.
Yeah.
And so nothing really has happened so far. But if China really wants because no Southeast Asian country that is infringed by the 9-dash line will ever consider China a friend, as long as China claims their maritime zones or territories. The people will never accept it. No government can survive if they concede to China the maritime zones.
Yeah.
That's why Vietnam, Malaysia, they will never concede. The government will fall if it concedes. So I thought China was willing to come to an agreement. It will get 40% of the gas of each country. And China, Sinuk will displace all these Western companies.
Yeah.
All Western companies will be displaced by Sinuk. And I thought that was that was enough for them. But apparently they are more greedy. They want to get everything.
Yun nga, yeah.
That's the big problem.
You give them 1 inch, they want the whole hand. So that's why kaya talagang kailangan na you're very clear with your red lines and you negotiate hard, no? Hindi pwede yung mabait ka, yung Tatay Digong style na I love you, protect me. All of those kind of barangay geopolitics, it's not gonna work. You have to be very professional when you deal with a rising power like China because they'll also protect their own national interests and push for a maximalist position.
We must be aware of our maximum position and stay there.
And last, Justice Carpio, so what is like the action plan you're thinking for the coming 6 months to 1 year? Kasi yun nga, the time element is very important here. Yung Reed Bank, paubos na. Diyan naman sa Ayungin Shoal, medyo alanganin din tayo doon because isa pa yan na ticking time bomb, di ba? Kasi yung Sierra Madre is also falling apart. So you have two really, really sensitive situations at the same time and it's really staring us in the eye. So for 6 years, Digong, dinidribble-dribble lang niya yan, hindi niya sinolve yan. So now this is on the lap of kawawa naman si Marcos Jr. No? It's like, protect BBM, di ba? He has to deal with these two simultaneous disasters, no? What is the action plan here, Justice Carpio? I did a 3.5 point, what about the action plan? In the next 6 months to 1 year pa lang, no? I mean, forget, who knows in 5 years what's gonna happen to Sierra Madre?
Well, the number one thing that we have to do is to get the gas in Reed Bank. That means we have to finalize the joint patrol with the U.S. Before the end of the year and get Forum Energy to send its survey ship and drilling ship there. We have to complete that because it takes 4 years at least to develop Reed Bank.
Yeah.
So if we run out of gas in Malampaya in 2 years, it will take us 4 years to develop Reed Bank. So we have a
In 2
gap
years
of 2 years
gap,
where we
yeah.
have to import LNG. And that will be very painful for the
Yeah.
economy. So it's really urgent. I hope the entire nation will realize the urgency of the matter, that we have to know, can we get the gas in Reed Bank or not? Because if we cannot get the gas in Reed Bank, we have to tighten our belts. It will be terrible for us to be importing LNG because the manufacturing costs, the biggest part of manufacturing costs is really energy in the Philippines. So if that it's about 30% of your total cost. If that 30% goes up by 50%, that's terrible. I mean, you have to
Yeah.
get out. The companies that are operating will have to leave the country if power rates go up by 50%.
Yeah.
So it will be a
It
terrible
will
thing.
choke our national
So-
development. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So that's it. For me, the number one problem is we have to solve this gas shortage, which I see coming within 2 years.
And in terms of EDCA, are there ways or is there some direction trajectory with the EDCA sa tingin niyo, Justice Carpio, could be also helpful to this issue? I mean, like more forward presence by Americans in Bautista Air
Well,
Base or close to the West Philippine Sea. Do you think that's relevant?
Well, we can have a deal with China if China does not stop us. If China recognizes our EEZ in the West Philippine Sea, we can tell China we don't need those additional EDCA sites.
Right. Yun ang bargaining
Then,
chip natin. Mm.
Yeah, we don't, because they're saying that we're stoking the flames. But it's because they're stopping us from getting the gas in Reed Bank.
Right.
Because let us say that a skirmish happens in Reed Bank. We try to get the gas. Our Navy ship is attacked there by the Chinese. We invoke the treaty. And where will the Americans pass in going to Reed Bank? They have to pass through the Basi Channel. So the Americans are saying, protect the Basi Channel,
Yeah.
because our warships will be passing there. So we have to protect the Basi Channel because that is the route of the American warships that will support us, that will defend us in the West Philippine Sea. We have to provide a safe passage for them because it's right there along our beside our coast.
And
But today, if China says, okay, you can get the gas in Reed Bank, we don't need the EDCA sites.
right.
Thank you.
And last one, Justice Carpio. I mean, I'm very happy with some things changing under the current administration when it comes to West Philippine Sea, etc. At the same time, we know that President Marcos Jr. is, well, to put it mildly, quite a conflict avoidant guy, you know? And now, literally, we're talking about potentially risking conflict with China if we press ahead. Now, I think both of us deep inside agree that, if you really stand your ground, you will get away with it. Just like how the Malaysians had got away with the Petronas. Not only with China, pati Vietnam, nagalit din sa kanya. May three-way race pa nga sila at one point. My sense naman talaga is if you stand your ground, the bullies will back out. But you have to be absolutely clear that you're gonna stand your ground and have some sort of backup. I don't know if President Marcos Jr. is seeing it in the same way perhaps you and I have been seeing it. I don't know if he has been following the situation with Malaysia and others as careful as you and I. But I don't want to put you on the spot, but how cautiously optimistic you are that he will develop that. He has to be a bit Duterte, right? In a good way. Kasi
Well-
medyo risky tayo, yeah.
Well, the fear of God is in his eyes because if he cannot if we cannot get the gas in Reed Bank,
Yeah, it's over.
inflation will go through the roof. He will become very unpopular.
Yeah.
That 20 peso per kilo of rice will be gone forever. I mean, no, he will be laughed at already.
Yeah, yeah.
If he cannot even get the gas in Reed Bank, the sentiment of the people will change. Prices will go up.
Yeah.
Food prices will go up. And when food prices go up, I've seen it happen. I was there in Malacanang when we had a rice crisis, and people
Ramos
become
administration.
emotional.
Yeah, this is
You
Ramos.
cannot,
Yeah.
you cannot, uh, you cannot reason with people
Yeah.
they cannot buy rice or the rice prices go up. So he will become very unpopular. He knows this, I think.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think he has really no choice but to do a joint patrol and get that survey done by before the end of the year.
Thank you very much, Justice Carver. I really appreciate this because I think the angle of Reed Bank is something that has been underemphasized in a lot of discussions. I mean, you can imagine others are saying, alam niyo na, mga Caribbean accounts. Yung mga ganun. Like, I could see people talking about other angles to explain this change in tone and all of that. But I also, for me naman, I also felt the shadow of the father would have played some sort of role. And you have people like Ambassador Romualdez, who we interviewed a few months ago, also here, who also said, well, the father legacy aspect was quite important for Marcos Jr. in charting his relationship with the great powers. Thank you very much, Justice Carpenter, for emphasizing that. My sense is, for better or worse, we'll have to catch up in a few months' time. Aside from the other fora that we always join together, because this is a very sensitive and developing issue, very fast developing issue. But at least I'm glad that we're not in a situation whereby we have to even question the president of the republic. At least tapos na yung ganyan panahon. That was very hard for us to do, right? Maraming salamat, Justice
That's right.
Carpio. Please stay strong, take care of yourself. Mabuhay ka, Justice Carpio. And catch up soon. Maraming salamat
Thank
po.
you, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God
Bye.
bless. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. And medyo maaga yung nag-start today. I hope post ko yung finalized version niya ito soon. Thank you so much sa lahat ng mga sumuporta sa atin. I know medyo iba tong tone kasi syempre retard justice, forever justice ang kausap natin. Mamaya pag naman si Ronald RNR and Lelo, iba naman yung tone natin. But this is a very serious issue and I'm glad that we talked to Justice Carpio because he emphasized something na even I have underemphasized, which is yung issue sa read bank talaga. Oo, paubos na yung malampaya at pag paubos na yung malampaya, good luck na lang talaga sa atin kung hindi pa natin develop yung mga alternatives, especially ito sa read bank. Sinayang talaga ng oras ng development. So ngayon, habol time for BBM. Just wish the best that BBM, have what it takes to sobrang mahalaga talaga itong issue ng lead bank ito. Ang mahal-mahal na nga ng Pilipinas, ang mahal-mahal ng gasolina, ang mahal-mahal ng electricity. Isipin nyo kung ubus ng malampaya at wala tayong sariling natural gas resource, mag-import pa tayo. My God, from Qatar pa, ang mahal-mahal pa. So, malaking issue to. So, yung mga walang pake sa West Philippine Sea, or gusto lang makinig sa mga ni Tatay Digong, mga rants niya, or dun sa mga pro-China bakery, mga ganyan. Yan. Ito na lang isipin nyo, kawawang Pilipinas, pagtuloy-tuloy itong harassment sa atin at yung pag-prevent sa atin sa pag-develop ng read bank. Atin to sa loob ng exclusive economic zone natin yan. Dapat panon parang Digong, sana ginetski na yan, nag-jetski siya at na-develop na yan. Hindi niya ginawa. Purong jetski, siga-siga, duwag naman pagdating dun sa isa. Alright, on that note, thank you very much guys, and catch up and talk to you soon. Salamat po.